Today, our fingers touched, and I was shaking the whole day. You wrote this about me,
You shouldn't have read that. That's private. You had no right.
and you had no right to make me feel something for the first time in years and think you'd walk away unscathed.
The rain in Manhattan didn't wash away the filth. It just made the city slick and treacherous, just like the business deal Nasser Al-Nahyan had closed 3 hours ago. At 6:45 a.m., the city was waking up, but the daily grind, a tiny hole-in-the-wall cafe tucked between two skyscrapers, was dead silent. Nasser stood inside, the only customer allowed before opening hours. It was a privilege bought with exorbitant tips and a handshake agreement with the owner. He needed this. 10 minutes of silence before the noise of his empire, oil, real estate, and a royal lineage that felt more like a noose than a crown, came crashing down on him. He was adjusting his platinum cufflinks, staring at the rain lashing against the window, when he saw it. A cheap, spiral-bound notebook. It was sitting on table 4, the wobbly table in the corner. The cover was a faded cardboard blue, water-stained at the edges. It looked pathetic against the sleek, dark wood of the cafe. It didn't belong in his world. Nasser didn't touch things that weren't his. He was a man of discipline, a man who ruled a conglomerate worth billions with an iron fist. But something about the notebook called to him. It was forgotten, abandoned, just like he felt in the middle of a crowded boardroom. He picked it up. It opened naturally to a page marked with a coffee stain. The handwriting was feminine, looping, and rushed, as if the writer was terrified of being caught. I want him to pin me against the wall of the empty cafe, right there by the espresso machine where the steam is thickest. I want to feel the weight of his body crushing mine, hot and heavy and impossible to resist. I want him to rip this stained apron off me with those large, devastating hands and kiss me like he's starving and I'm the only meal that can keep him alive. Nasser froze. The air in the cafe seemed to vanish. His heart, usually a steady metronome of cold calculation, slammed against his ribs like a trapped bird. He shouldn't be reading this. This was private. This was raw. This was a violation. He gripped the notebook harder, his knuckles turning white. He should close it. He should leave it. Instead, he turned the page. I know it's wrong to fantasize about a customer. I know he never sees me. To him, I'm part of the furniture, just the hands that pass the black coffee. But every night in my tiny, freezing room, I close my eyes and I let myself go. I imagine what it would be like if those obsidian eyes actually looked at me. If he knew that I touch myself thinking of him, moaning a name I only learned from his credit card receipt.
Nasser. She was writing about him. Heat, liquid and scorching, flooded his veins. It went straight to his groin, a violent, instantaneous reaction that shocked him. He had slept with supermodels, actresses, and daughters of diplomats. Their touch was practiced, their moans were choreographed, and their desire was always for his bank account. But this was visceral. This was hunger. He flipped backward, checking the dates. 8 months. For 8 months, while he stood here drinking his coffee in brooding silence, this woman, this invisible ghost, had been undressing him with her mind. She had been worshipping the man, not the sheik. Today, he wore the charcoal suit. It makes his shoulders look like mountains I want to climb. When I handed him the cup, our fingers brushed, just for a microsecond. A spark. He didn't flinch. He didn't notice. But I went to the bathroom and shook for 10 minutes. I replayed that touch until I felt sick with longing. Nasser looked down at his own hand. He remembered that suit. He remembered the coffee. He did not remember the touch. How? How had he been so blind? He felt a sudden, crushing wave of guilt mixed with an intoxicating sense of power. He wasn't just a billionaire to her, he was a god. And she was suffering. I hate myself for loving him. He is a sheik, a king in a glass tower. I am a waitress with $42 in her bank account and a father who was going to get us killed if he doesn't stop drinking away the rent money. I am nothing, less than nothing, but my heart chose him and it refuses to listen to logic. A father who is going to get us killed. Nasser's eyes narrowed. The erotic haze cleared, replaced by the predator's instinct. She wasn't just invisible, she was desperate. The sound of keys jingling in the front lock shattered the moment. Nasser didn't put the diary down. He didn't hide it. He turned around, the small blue notebook looking absurdly small in his large hand. The door opened. A gust of wind and rain blew in, followed by a figure struggling with a broken umbrella. She turned, shaking the water from her hair, and locked eyes with him. Rania Nader. He knew her name because it was scrawled on the inside cover, but for the first time in 2 years, he actually saw her. She was smaller than he expected, soaking wet. Her cheap coat was threadbare, offering no protection against the New York winter. Her hair, dark and heavy with rain, plastered to her neck, but her eyes, they were the color of honey held up to sunlight. And right now, those eyes were wide with absolute paralyzed horror. She looked at him. Then she looked at his hands. She saw the blue notebook. The color drained from her face so fast, Nasser thought she might faint. Her lips parted, trembling, but no sound came out. It was the look of a deer caught in the headlights right before impact. You... Her voice was a strangled whisper, barely audible over the hum of the refrigerator. You read it? Nasser didn't lie. He didn't sugarcoat it. He was a man who dealt in brutal truths. I read it, he said, his voice dropping an octave, rougher than usual. Rania let out a sound that was half sob, half gasp. She dropped her bag. Her hands flew to her face, covering her burning cheeks. Oh, my God, please, no.
Rania. He stepped forward. The sound of her name on his tongue felt heavy, intimate. She flinched as if he had struck her. Give it to me, she begged, her voice muffled behind her hands. She was shaking violently. Please, just give it back and I'll leave. I'll quit. You'll never see me again. I promise. Just don't look at me. Quit? Nasser stopped 2 feet away from her. The scent of rain and cheap vanilla soap wafted off her. It was intoxicating. And go where? To the apartment you can't pay for? To the father who is drinking your life away? Rania lowered her hands slowly. The humiliation in her eyes was replaced by a flash of fear. How did you read that far? I read everything. Nasser lied. He hadn't read everything, but he knew enough. He closed the distance between them, invading her personal space. He needed to see if the electricity she wrote about was real. He felt it. The air between them crackled. Why? She whispered, tears spilling over her lashes. Why are you doing this? Is it funny to you? To see the poor girl embarrass herself? Funny? Nasser let out a dark, humorless laugh. He reached out, his finger hooking under her chin, forcing her to look up at him. Her skin was cold from the rain, but she burned under his touch. Do you think I'm laughing, Rania? He leaned down, his lips brushing her shell of ear. I'm not laughing. I'm intrigued. Rania shivered, a full-bodied tremor that he felt through his fingertips. You wrote that you wanted to be saved, Nasser murmured, his voice a velvet trap. You wrote that you wanted me to consume you. That was a fantasy, she stammered, trying to pull back but trapped by his gaze. It's not real. It can be. The words hung in the air, heavy and dangerous. Rania stared at him. What? Nasser held up the diary. Everything you wrote in here, he said, his eyes darkening to the color of the abyss. I don't just want to read it, Rania. I want to enact it. Every filthy, desperate, romantic secret you hid in these pages. I want them all. Rania gasped. You can't be serious. I am never anything but serious. He checked his watch, a Patek Philippe that cost more than her entire life's earnings. My driver will pick you up at 9 p.m. Don't be late." "I won't come," she defied him, though her voice wavered. "I'm not a prostitute, Nasser." He paused at the door, turning back to look at her one last time. He saw the fire in her, the pride she clung to despite her poverty. It only made him want her more. "Check your bank balance, Rania. Then check your father's gambling debt." His expression was unreadable, a mask of stone. "You aren't a prostitute, but you are desperate, and I am the only salvation you have." He shoved the diary into his jacket pocket. "I'm keeping this. Collateral." And then he walked out into the rain, leaving her standing in the empty cafe, her heart pounding so hard it felt like it might shatter her ribs. Rania stood frozen. The bell above the door jingled into silence. He had taken the diary. He knew her secrets. And tonight he expected her to live them. She slumped against the counter, sliding down until she hit the floor. She should run. She should call the police. She should do anything but what he asked. But then her phone buzzed in her pocket. A text message from her landlord. Eviction notice. 24 hours. Rania closed her eyes and let the tears fall. The line between fantasy and nightmare had just vanished. The car that picked her up wasn't a car. It was a rolling fortress, a black Maybach that glided through the potholed streets of Queens like a shark swimming through sewage. Rania sat in the back, her hands clenched so tightly in her lap that her fingernails cut crescents into her palms. She was wearing her best dress, a navy blue wrap dress she'd bought at a thrift store 3 years ago. It felt cheap against the hand-stitched leather seats. She checked her phone one last time. "Dad, just need $500 more, honey. Just this once. Landlord, locks change tomorrow at noon." She shut the phone off. There was no going back. The drive to Manhattan took 40 minutes. 40 minutes to hyperventilate. 40 minutes to regret every word she had scribbled in that blue notebook. Why had she written it? Why? Because she was lonely. Because writing about Nasser Al-Nahyan was safe. He was a celestial body, distant, burning, unreachable. You could admire the sun without getting burned as long as you stayed on Earth. But now, she was flying straight into the center of the star. The elevator ride to the penthouse of the Al-Nahyan Tower made her ears pop. When the doors slid open, Rania stepped directly into a world of cold, terrifying perfection. Floor-to-ceiling glass walls revealed the entire Manhattan skyline, glittering like diamonds spread on black velvet. The furniture was modern, Italian, and looked uncomfortable. There were no photos, no personal items. It was a showroom, not a home. And standing by the window, holding a crystal tumbler of amber liquid, was Nasser. He had changed. The suit was gone. He wore black dress slacks and a white dress shirt, unbuttoned at the collar, sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms corded with muscle. He looked less like a businessman and more like a brawler who had cleaned up for a funeral. He didn't turn around when she entered. "You're on time," he said to the reflection in the glass. "I didn't have a choice," Rania replied, her voice trembling but defiant. "You have my diary, and you know about my situation." Nasser turned then. His face was hard, his eyes scanning her from head to toe. He frowned when he looked at her dress. "That won't do." Rania blinked, instinctively wrapping her arms around herself. "Excuse me?" "The dress. It's cheap polyester. It doesn't breathe." He set his drink down and walked toward a sleek black table in the center of the room. On it sat a glossy white box tied with a black ribbon. "I ordered something for you." "I don't want your clothes, Nasser. You want the money for your father, and I want the fantasy. In the diary, entry 42, do you remember it?" Rania's blood ran cold. Entry 42, the silk entry. "I imagine wearing silk, real silk, the color of red wine. I want it to feel slide against my skin while he watches. I want him to know I'm wearing nothing underneath." "Go to the guest room," Nasser commanded, gesturing to a door on the left. "Put it on. Leave the rest of your clothes there." "Nasser, please," she whispered. "This is humiliating." He took a step closer, towering over her. The scent of sandalwood and expensive scotch hit her. Humiliation wasn't in the diary, Rania. Desire was. Submission was. Unless, was it all a lie? Just scribbles from a bored little girl. He was baiting her, challenging her. Rania grabbed the box. Fine. 10 minutes later, she stared at herself in the guest bathroom mirror. The slip dress was exquisite, a deep, blood-red silk that clung to every curve of her body like a second skin. It was scandalous, it was beautiful, and she was terrified because she liked it. She liked how she looked. For the first time in years, she didn't look like the tired waitress. She looked like a woman who could bring a king to his knees. She took a deep breath and walked back out. Nasser was sitting on a massive leather sofa. He had the blue notebook open on his lap. When he heard her footsteps, he looked up. For a second, the mask slipped. His eyes widened, his pupil blew wide, swallowing the iris. His hand tightened around the glass he was holding until Rania thought it might shatter. "Come here," he rasped. Rania's legs felt like lead. She walked over, stopping just out of reach. Closer. She stepped between his spread knees. The heat radiating from him was palpable. "Do you know why I brought you here, Rania?" he asked, his voice low and dangerous. "To mock me?" she said softly. "To play with me?" No. He reached out, his rough thumb tracing the line of the silk on her hip. The touch burned through the fabric. "Because you are the only person in this city who doesn't want something from me." "I want money," she reminded him. "Now you do, because you have to. But when you wrote this," he tapped the notebook, "you wanted me, just the man." He stood up abruptly, the sudden movement making her gasp. He grabbed her waist and spun her around, pressing her back against the cold glass of the window. New York City lay sprawled below them, 1,000 feet down, but Rania only felt the hard wall of his chest against her back. "Entry 15, he whispered into her ear, his breath hot against her neck. "I want him to press me against the wall. I want to feel his body, hot and heavy and impossible to resist." Rania whimpered. It was happening, exactly as she wrote it. "Is this what you wanted?" he growled, pressing his hips into hers. He was hard. There was no hiding it. "Is it?" "Yes," she breathed, her head falling back against his shoulder. "Tell me," he demanded, his hand moving up to grip her throat gently, tilting her head back so he could look into her eyes. "Tell me you want me, not the Sheik, not the billionaire, me." "I want you, Nasser. I've always wanted you." He stared at her, his eyes searching for a lie, for the deceit he was so used to finding in women. He found none, just raw, open need. He leaned in, his lips hovering millimeters from hers. Rania closed her eyes, waiting for the kiss that would save her or destroy her. But he didn't kiss her. Instead, his phone rang. The shrill sound shattered the atmosphere like a hammer through glass. Nasser froze. He didn't ignore it. He pulled back, the physical separation hitting Rania like a splash of ice water. He pulled his phone from his pocket. His jaw tightened. Layla. Rania didn't know the name, but she felt the change in the air. The heat vanished, replaced by the cold steel of the boardroom. "I have to take this," Nasser said, his voice flat. He stepped away from her, turning his back. "Go to the guest room. Stay there. Don't come out until I come for you." "Nasser?" she asked, feeling exposed and foolish in the red silk. He didn't look back. "Go, Rania, before I forget that I'm supposed to be a gentleman."
Rania ran into the guest room and slammed the door. She slid the lock home and collapsed on the bed. Outside, in the main room, Nasser answered the phone. "What do you want, Lila?" "The board is meeting tomorrow," a sharp, cultured female voice replied. "They're discussing the merger. And Nasser, there are rumors. Someone saw you leaving the cafe with the girl. The help." Nasser gripped the phone. "She's not the help. She's a liability," Lila hissed. "You are about to close the biggest deal in Al-Nahyan history. You need to be spotless. If the press finds out you're playing house with a waitress, the stock dips. And if the stock dips, your father— Leave my father out of this. Get rid of her, Nasser. Pay her. Fuck her if you have to. But don't let her stick around. You know what happens to things you try to keep." Nasser hung up. He looked at the closed door of the guest room. He could hear Rania crying softly inside. He looked down at the diary on the coffee table. He should send her away. He should give her the check and never see her again. It was the safe thing to do. But then he remembered the way she looked at him, not with greed, but with reverence. He picked up the diary again. He wasn't going to send her away. He was going to ruin her, or let her save him. He didn't know which one yet. The silence in the guest room was deafening. Rania sat on the edge of the king-size bed, the red silk dress feeling less like armor and more like a target. An hour had passed since Nasser took the call. An hour of Rania staring at the door, waiting for him to come in and tell her to leave, to tell her that she wasn't worth the risk, that the fantasy was over before it began. She looked at her reflection in the darkened window. Stupid, she thought. Stupid girl with stupid dreams. Then the handle turned. Rania flinched, straightening her spine. She wouldn't let him see her cry. Nasser walked in. He had ditched the tie. His shirt was unbuttoned halfway down his chest, revealing the dark hair there. He held 2 glasses of water. No whiskey this time. He looked exhausted. Not physically, but deeply, spiritually drained. He didn't look at her body. He looked at her face. He walked over and placed a glass on the nightstand next to her. The domesticity of the gesture was so jarring it was almost violent. "Drink," he ordered softly. "You've been crying. You're dehydrated." Rania stared at the glass. "Are you sending me home?" Nasser sat down in the armchair opposite the bed. He stretched his long legs out, crossing them at the ankles. He studied her for a long moment, his eyes unreadable in the dim light. "Entry 73, he said suddenly. Rania's breath hitched. She knew the numbers by heart. "Nasser, please." He commanded. His voice wasn't harsh anymore. It was low, compelling. Rania looked down at her hands. Her voice was a whisper. "I wonder what he talks about when the world stops watching. I want to sit with him in the dark when the masks come off. I want to know the things that keep him awake at 3 a.m. I want to hold his hand and tell him that he doesn't have to be strong all the time." The room fell silent again. The air conditioner hummed. "People don't ask me questions, Rania. They ask for favors. They ask for loans. They ask for introductions. But they never ask me."
It was a challenge. He was framing this vulnerability as a transaction to protect his ego. If he paid her to listen, he didn't have to admit he needed her to listen. Rania took a sip of the water to steady her nerves. She realized, with a jolt, that this terrified him more than the sex. "Why do you come to the cafe?" she asked. "You own half the city. Why the daily grind?" Nasser let out a breath that sounded like a laugh. "Because it smells like burnt beans and cheap cleaner. Because nobody there knows my middle name. Because for 20 minutes a day, I'm just a guy in a suit, not His Highness or the CEO." "You hate it," she realized. "The title." "I hate the cage," he corrected. "Gold bars are still bars." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "My turn. Why the dead? Your father?" Rania stiffened. He wasn't always like this. After Mom died, he broke. He started gambling to feel something other than grief. Now he owes loan sharks in Jersey, dangerous men. If I don't pay $5,000 by tomorrow, they said they'd take a finger. Nasser's expression didn't change, but his eyes grew cold, lethal. "Give me the names." "What?" "The names of the men, tonight." "Nasser, you can't. I can do anything, Rania. I am the monster in the high tower, remember? I eat men like that for breakfast. He stood up and walked over to the bed. He sat down next to her. The mattress dipped under his weight. He was close. So close she could feel the heat radiating off him. You bear too much weight for shoulders this small, he murmured, lifting a hand to brush a stray lock of hair from her cheek. His fingers lingered on her jawline. The touch was electric. Rania leaned into it instinctively. "Why are you doing this?" she whispered. "Is this still about the diary?" "At first, yes. I wanted to see if the girl who wrote such filthy, beautiful things was real. And now?" Nasser's thumb traced her lower lip. His eyes dropped to her mouth, then back up to her honey-colored eyes. "Now I think you might be the only real thing I've found in 10 years. He didn't kiss her. He did something more intimate. He took her hand, her rough, calloused waitress hand, and interlaced his fingers with hers. His grip was tight, desperate. "Stay," he said. "Stay? Here, in this bed, with me." Rania's heart hammered against her ribs. "You want sex?" "No," Nasser said, lying back against the pillows and pulling her down with him. He wrapped an arm around her waist, trapping her against his hard chest. "I want entry 73. I want to be held. I want to sleep knowing someone is here who isn't trying to steal my wallet." He pulled the duvet over them. "But be warned, Rania," he whispered into her hair, his voice dropping to a growl. "If you try to leave, if you try to run, I will find you. You open this door. You don't get to close it just because you're scared." Rania lay stiffly at first, overwhelmed by the scent of him, the weight of his arm, the surrealness of lying in a billionaire's bed in a $5,000 dress. But as Nasser's breathing evened out, as his grip relaxed just enough to be an embrace rather than a restraint, she softened. She realized something terrifying. He wasn't just using her, he was clinging to her. She turned in his arms, resting her head on his chest. She listened to his heartbeat. It was strong, steady, and human. "I'm not going anywhere," she whispered into the darkness. Nasser didn't answer, but his arm tightened around her. For the first time in her life, Rania felt safe. And for the first time in his life, Nasser slept without nightmares. The next morning, sunlight blasted into the room. Rania woke up alone. Panic flared instantly. Had he left? Had he kicked her out while she slept? She sat up, the red silk dress rumpled. On the nightstand, there was a note and the black credit card. Black card. No limit. Buy clothes, something suitable for a gala. My driver will pick you up at 7. We have a board meeting to crash. Nasser. Rania stared at the card. A gala? A board meeting? She picked up her phone. It was blowing up with notifications, but one stood out. A text from her father. "Dad, sweetheart, I don't know what you did, but the debt is gone. They called me, said it was paid in full. They apologized." "Rania, what is happening?" She dropped the phone. He had done it. He had cleared the debt while she slept. She was free. Technically, she didn't have to see him again. She could take the card, cut it up, and disappear. The transaction was complete. But as she touched the spot on the pillow where his head had rested, Rania knew the truth. She wasn't free. She was deeper in than ever. Because now, she didn't just owe him money. She owed him her heart.
Rania stared at herself in the three-way mirror of the Madison Avenue boutique. The sales assistants who had looked down their noses at her jeans an hour ago were now hovering like anxious hummingbirds, offering champagne and adjusting hems. The dress was gold, not a soft, subtle gold, but a molten, metallic shade that looked like liquid wealth poured over her body. It was backless, plunging dangerously low, held up by nothing but thin straps and sheer audacity.
It cost $12,000, more than she used to make in 6 months. Nasser's black card hadn't even blinked. "You look devastating," the stylist whispered, actually sounding sincere for the first time. Rania didn't feel devastating. She felt like an imposter, a fraud wrapped in silk. But when she thought of Nasser, of the way he had held her hand in the dark, of the way he had paid off her father's debt without saying a word, she straightened her spine. He had invited her into his world. She wouldn't embarrass him by cowering. The Al-Nahyan Foundation Gala was held at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. The Temple of Dendor was lit in blue and violet, filled with the kind of people Rania usually only saw on the covers of magazines: senators, tech moguls, supermodels. When the limousine pulled up, the flashbulbs were blinding, a wall of white light and shouting photographers. "Nasser, over here! Nasser!" The door opened. Nasser stepped out first. The crowd went silent for a split second. He was breathtaking in a tuxedo that fit him like a second skin, his dark hair swept back, his face a mask of boarded arrogance. He ignored the screaming photographers and turned, extending a hand into the dark interior of the car. Rania took it. As she stepped out, the gold dress caught the camera flashes, igniting like fire. Nasser didn't let go of her hand. He pulled her flush against his side, his arm winding around her waist like a steel band. It was a possessive, territorial grip. "Breathe," he whispered against her ear, lips grazing her skin for the cameras to see. "You own this room because you're with me." "They're staring," she whispered back, her heart hammering. "Let them stare. They've never seen anything real before." They walked the red carpet. It felt like walking through a minefield. Rania could feel the judgment, the whispers. Who is she? Is she a model? A princess? Inside, the air was cold and smelled of expensive lilies. Waiters circulated with champagne. Rania clung to Nasser's arm, her anchor in the storm. "Nasser, darling." The voice was smooth, cultured, and laced with venom. A woman approached them. She was tall, statuesque, wearing emerald green velvet. Her hair was sleek, black, and severe. She was beautiful in a terrifying, predatorial way. "Layla." Nasser stopped, his body tensed against Rania's. "Layla," he nodded, his voice dropped 10 degrees. Layla's dark eyes swept over Rania, dissecting her in a single second. She saw the dress, the nervousness, the way Rania gripped Nasser's sleeve. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "So this is the rumor," Layla drawled, stepping closer. She ignored Rania completely, speaking only to Nasser. "A bold choice for tonight. The board is already nervous about the merger, and you bring a pet." Rania felt the blood drain from her face. "Careful, Layla," Nasser warned, his voice low and lethal. Rania stared at herself in the three-way mirror of the Madison Avenue boutique. The sales assistants who had looked down their noses at her jeans an hour ago were now hovering like anxious hummingbirds, offering champagne and adjusting hems. The dress was gold, not a soft, subtle gold, but a molten, metallic shade that looked like liquid wealth poured over her body. It was backless, plunging dangerously low, held up by nothing but thin straps and sheer audacity. It cost $12,000, more than she used to make in 6 months. Nasser's black card hadn't even blinked. "You look devastating," the stylist whispered, actually sounding sincere for the first time. Rania didn't feel devastating. She felt like an imposter, a fraud wrapped in silk. But when she thought of Nasser, of the way he had held her hand in the dark, of the way he had paid off her father's debt without saying a word, she straightened her spine. He had invited her into his world. She wouldn't embarrass him by cowering. The Al-Nahyan Foundation Gala was held at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. The Temple of Dendor was lit in blue and violet, filled with the kind of people Rania usually only saw on the covers of magazines: senators, tech moguls, supermodels. When the limousine pulled up, the flashbulbs were blinding,
a wall of white light and shouting photographers. "Nasser, over here! Nasser!" The door opened. Nasser stepped out first. The crowd went silent for a split second. He was breathtaking in a tuxedo that fit him like a second skin, his dark hair swept back, his face a mask of boarded arrogance. He ignored the screaming photographers and turned, extending a hand into the dark interior of the car. Rania took it. As she stepped out, the gold dress caught the camera flashes, igniting like fire. Nasser didn't let go of her hand. He pulled her flush against his side, his arm winding around her waist like a steel band. It was a possessive, territorial grip. "Breathe," he whispered against her ear, lips grazing her skin for the cameras to see. "You own this room because you're with me." "They're staring," she whispered back, her heart hammering. Let them stare. They've never seen anything real before. They walked the red carpet. It felt like walking through a minefield. Rania could feel the judgment, the whispers. Who is she? Is she a model? A princess? Inside, the air was cold and smelled of expensive lilies. Waiters circulated with champagne. Rania clung to Nasser's arm, her anchor in the storm. "Nasser, darling." The voice was smooth, cultured, and laced with venom. A woman approached them. She was tall, statuesque, wearing emerald green velvet. Her hair was sleek, black, and severe. She was beautiful in a terrifying, predatorial way. "Layla." Nasser stopped, his body tensed against Rania's. "Layla," he nodded, his voice dropped 10 degrees. Layla's dark eyes swept over Rania, dissecting her in a single second. She saw the dress, the nervousness, the way Rania gripped Nasser's sleeve. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "So this is the rumor," Layla drawled, stepping closer. She ignored Rania completely, speaking only to Nasser. "A bold choice for tonight. The board is already nervous about the merger, and you bring a pet." Rania felt the blood drain from her face. "Careful, Layla," Nasser warned, his voice low and lethal.
He swept her out of the hall, leaving a trail of stunned silence and a viral moment that was already trending on Twitter before they even reached the exit. The limousine. Inside the car, the silence was heavy. Rania touched her lips. She was trembling. "You didn't have to do that," she whispered. "Everyone saw." "Good." Nasser loosened his tie, looking at her with a hunger that made the air in the car thin. "Now they know." "Know what?" "That you're mine." Rania felt a thrill shoot down her spine, but the fear lingered. Layla's words echoed in her head. "A purchase." "Nasser," she started, needing to ask, needing to know if Layla was right. But Nasser's phone pinged. A notification. He glanced at it, and his face went white. All the triumph, all the fire vanished instantly. "What is it?" Rania asked, reaching for him. He pulled away, staring at the screen. "What did you do?" he whispered, looking at her with sudden horrifying suspicion. "What?" He turned the phone screen toward her. It wasn't a photo of the kiss. It was a photo of the diary, a page of it. The page detailing his private business dealings, things she had overheard in the cafe and written down in the margins of her fantasies, secrets that could destroy his merger. Headline: The Billionaire's Leak. Waitress lover sells corporate secrets for quick cash. Rania's heart stopped. I didn't do that. You have the diary. You kept it." "I left it on the table in the penthouse. Nobody else was there, Rania. Only you." "Layla," Rania gasped. "She knew about the debt. She must have—" "Layla wasn't in my apartment," Nasser snapped. "You were." The car stopped at the curb of his building, but Nasser didn't open the door for her this time. "Get out." "Nasser, please listen to me." "Get out." The wall was back up. The beast had returned, and this time, there was no key to let him out.
3 weeks later, Rania wasn't Rania Nader anymore. To the world, she was the gold-digging waitress,
the corporate spy, the bed warmer. The tabloids had been merciless. Layla had done her job well. Photos of Rania's father's gambling debts were leaked alongside the stolen diary pages. The narrative was perfect. The poor, desperate girl seduced the Sheik to steal secrets and pay off the mob. Rania had lost everything. She had been fired from the cafe before she could even quit. She had been evicted from her apartment because the paparazzi were camping on the fire escape. She had changed her number 3 times. Now she was in New Jersey, working the night shift at a 24-hour diner under the table, paid in cash. She wore a wig. She kept her head down. She was scrubbing a grease stain off table 6 when the nausea hit her again. It came like a wave, violent and sudden. Rania dropped her rag and sprinted to the employee bathroom. She barely made it to the sink before she retched, her stomach twisting painfully. She gripped the porcelain, shaking. Stress, she told herself. It's just stress, and the smell of old fryer oil. But deep down, she knew. She counted the days on her mental calendar. She was late. 5 weeks late. She looked at her reflection in the dirty mirror. Pale skin, dark circles, and eyes that had lost their honey gold light. "You stupid fool," she whispered to herself, her hand drifting to her flat stomach. Please no, not his. Anyone but his.
Nasser Al-Nahyan stood in the center of his living room. It was dark. He hadn't turned the lights on in days. The merger was complete. The stock was up 15%. Layla was celebrating with the board, and Nasser felt like he was dying. Everywhere he looked, he saw her, the ghost of Rania, in the red silk dress by the window, the phantom warmth of her body in his bed. He picked up the blue notebook from the coffee table. He had intended to burn it. He had a lighter in his hand. He flicked the lighter. The flame danced. Liar, he hissed at the book. Actor. He brought the flame to the edge of the paper, but his hand wouldn't move. He couldn't do it. Even hating her, he couldn't destroy the only thing that felt real. Instead, he threw the lighter across the room. It shattered against the wall. He sat down and opened the diary, looking for a reason to hate her more. He flipped to the end, to the pages he hadn't read closely before, the pages she wrote after they met. Wait. He squinted. The leaked pages in the press, the ones Layla claimed came from the diary, they had detailed the Al Hassan merger figures, specific stock prices, dates. Nasser flipped through the diary frantically. Entry 95, entry 96, entry 97. He read every word. He read her recounting the gala invitation. He read her fear of not being enough. He read her love for his laugh. But nowhere, absolutely nowhere, were there numbers. There were no stock prices, no merger details. Rania hadn't stolen the business secrets. She barely understood them. Nasser froze. If the numbers weren't in the diary, how did the press get a photo of a diary page with the numbers? He stood up, his mind racing. He went to his safe and pulled out the physical copy of the tabloid from 3 weeks ago. He looked at the photo of the leaked. It looked like Rania's handwriting. It looked like the blue paper. But then he saw it. In the corner of the photo of the diary page, there was a coffee stain, a ring. Nasser looked at the real diary in his hands. There was no coffee stain on that page. It was a forgery, a high-quality, meticulous forgery. The realization hit him with the force of a physical blow. Rania didn't steal the secrets. Someone had forged a page to look like her diary and leaked it to frame her. Someone who had access to his business numbers. Someone who wanted Rania gone. Someone who had been in the apartment that night when he left Rania alone to take a call.
Nasser roared. It was a primal, animalistic sound of rage. He swept the expensive crystal vases off the table, smashing them to smithereens. He had cast her out. He had called her a whore. He had left her to the wolves. And she was innocent. "Get the car," he shouted into his phone, sprinting for the elevator. "Now!" Rania washed her face with cold water. She had to finish her shift.
She needed the money. If she was pregnant, she needed every cent. She walked back out to the floor. The diner was empty, except for a TV playing the news in the corner. Breaking news. Sheikh Nasser Al-Nahyan to announce engagement to business partner Layla Yassin. Rania stopped. She looked at the screen. A photo of Nasser and Layla. He looked cold, distant. She looked triumphant. The pain in Rania's chest was blinding. He had moved on. Of course he had. She turned away, tears blurring her vision. She grabbed her notepad to take an order from the new customer who had just walked in. "Welcome to Joe's," she said, her voice cracking, keeping her head down. "What can I get you?" "I want the truth." The voice. That deep, gravelly, unforgettable voice. Rania dropped her notepad. She looked up. Standing in the entrance of the dirty New Jersey diner, wearing a trench coat soaked with rain, looking like a vengeful god who had crawled through hell, was Nasser. He wasn't looking at her wig. He wasn't looking at the cheap uniform. He was looking at her eyes. "Nasser," she breathed, taking a step back. Fear spiked in her chest. "Please, I don't have anything left for you to take. Leave me alone." "I'm not here to take," Nasser said, walking toward her. He ignored the cook shouting at him. He walked straight up to her, invading her space, consuming the air in the room. He looked wrecked. His eyes were red-rimmed. He hadn't shaved. "It was a forgery," he said, his voice raw. "I know." Rania froze. You know?" "I know I was a fool," Nasser rasped. He reached out, his hand trembling, trying to touch her cheek. "Rania, I'm so—" "Don't." Rania slapped his hand away. The sound echoed in the quiet diner. Nasser looked shocked. "You don't get to do that," Rania hissed, her anger finally overriding her fear. "You don't get to storm in here and apologize and fix it. You left me on the street, Nasser. You believed I was a thief. You didn't trust me." "I was angry. I was scared. Rania, please, come home. Let me fix this." "Home?" She laughed bitterly, tears streaming down her face. "I don't have a home. You made sure of that." Suddenly the world tilted. The stress, the shouting, the pregnancy. It was too much. Rania's vision went black at the edges. Her knees buckled. "Rania!" Nasser caught her before she hit the floor. He scooped her up into his arms, holding her tight against his chest. She was so light. Too light. "Call an ambulance!" Nasser screamed at the cook, his voice filled with terrifying panic. "Now!" Rania looked up at him, her vision fading. She saw the terror in his eyes. He did love her. He really did. But it was too late. "The baby," she whispered, her hand clutching his shirt, her consciousness slipping away. She passed out. Nasser froze. The world stopped spinning. His brain processed her whisper. "The baby." He looked down at the unconscious woman in his arms. He wasn't just holding his lover. He was holding the mother of his child. And he had almost destroyed them both.
Nasser Al-Nahyan did not pace. Pacing was a sign of nervousness, and Nasser wasn't nervous. He was terrified. He stood like a statue outside room 304 of the private hospital wing he had rented out entirely. "Your Highness," the chief of medicine approached, sweating despite the air conditioning. "She is stable. The fainting was caused by extreme exhaustion, dehydration, and the pregnancy." Nasser closed his eyes. It was real. "And the baby?" Nasser's voice was a shard of glass. "It is resilient. The heartbeat is strong." Nasser exhaled, a breath that felt like it had been held for a lifetime. He nodded to his security detail. "Let no one in, not even God." He entered the room. Rania looked small in the hospital bed, the IV line snaking into her pale arm. She was awake, staring at the ceiling, her hand protectively over her stomach. When she saw him, she flinched. "You can't have it," she rasped, her voice weak but fierce. "You can have the lawyers, you can have the money, but you cannot have the baby." Nasser felt his heart shatter.
He thought he was a monster. And why wouldn't he? He had acted like one. He didn't walk to the bedside with his usual arrogance. He walked slowly. And when he reached the bed, the Sheik, the billionaire, the man who made nations tremble, did the unthinkable. He dropped to his knees. He bowed his head, resting his forehead against the metal rail of her bed. I don't want to take the baby, Rania. I want to protect the mother. Rania stared down at the top of his head. You threw me out, Nasser. I know. I saw the forgery. I know it was Layla. I know you are innocent. I know I broke the only thing that ever mattered. Sorry doesn't fix this, Rania said, tears slipping from her eyes. Trust is like a mirror, Nasser. You smashed it. You can glue it back together, but I'll always see the cracks. Then let me replace the mirror, Nasser said intensely. He reached into his jacket pocket, not for a checkbook, but for a folded document. He placed it on the bed. What is this? A deed of trust, Nasser explained. It transfers 51% of my personal assets, my shares, my properties, my liquid cash, into a trust in your name. Irrevocable. Rania's eyes widened. Nasser, this is billions of dollars. It is my leverage. You were afraid I would use my power to crush you, so I am giving you the power to crush me. If I ever hurt you again, if I ever doubt you, you can sign one paper and leave me destitute. I don't want your money, she cried. I know. Nasser grabbed her hand, kissing the knuckles desperately. That is why you are the only one who deserves it. I am putting my life in your hands, Rania. Literally. Please, just give me a chance to earn you back. Rania looked at the contract, and then at the man kneeling on the linoleum floor, the man who had stripped himself of his armor. You have to earn it, she whispered. Every single day. I will earn it until my last breath. The following morning, Layla Yassin sat at the head of the conference table. She was smiling. The engagement rumors were swirling. The stock was high. She had won. The doors slammed open. Nasser walked in. He wasn't wearing a suit. He was wearing jeans and a black t-shirt. He looked dangerous. Behind him walked Rania, looking pale but standing tall, wearing a simple white dress. Nasser? Layla stood up, her smile faltering. What is this? Why is she here? Nasser didn't speak. He clicked a remote. The projector screen behind Layla lit up. It showed two images side by side. The leaked diary page and the real page from the Blue Notebook. Forensic analysis, Nasser announced to the stunned board members, proves the ink on the left was less than 3 weeks old. The ink on the right is 8 months old. Layla's face went gray. Furthermore, Nasser continued, his voice cold as the grave, security footage from my penthouse shows unauthorized entry at 9:45 p.m. on the night of the gala. By you, Layla. This is ridiculous. You're going to take the word of a waitress over your partner? No, Nasser said. I am taking the word of the future owner of this company. He turned to the board. Layla Yassin is fired for corporate espionage, fraud, and defamation. Security is waiting to escort her out. If she resists, call the police. You can't do this, Layla shrieked as 2 guards grabbed her arms. I made you, Nasser. You are nothing without me. She will destroy you. Nasser looked at Layla with zero emotion. She already saved me. As Layla was dragged out screaming, Nasser turned to Rania. He didn't care about the board members watching. He kissed her forehead. Done. Now let's go home. The desert. 3 months later, Rania sat on a dune, the warm sand beneath her feet.
Above her, the sky was an endless canopy of stars, billions of them, brighter than anything in New York. It was exactly as she had written in Entry 1. The desert, the silence, the stars. Nasser sat behind her, his arms wrapped around her growing belly. He rested his chin on her shoulder. "Is it like you imagined?" he asked softly. "Better. Because it's real." Nasser tightened his hold. They had spent the last 3 months healing, talking, crying. There were no secrets left. He had shown her the scars of his childhood. She had shown him the fears of her poverty. He reached into his bag and pulled out the blue notebook, the diary. "You stopped writing," he said, handing it to her. "I didn't have anything left to wish for." Rania smiled, leaning back against his chest. "I have a wish," Nasser murmured. "Open the last page." Rania opened the diary. On the very last page, in Nasser's sharp, angular handwriting, there was a new entry. Entry: forever. "I want to wake up every morning next to Rania. I want to watch our child grow up knowing they are loved, not bought. I want to be the man she saw in me when I couldn't see myself. I want her to say yes when I ask her the most important question of my life." Rania gasped. She turned around. Nasser was holding a ring. It wasn't a massive diamond. It was a vintage gold band, simple and timeless. "Rania Nader," Nasser said, his eyes reflecting the galaxies above them. "My savior, my soul. Will you marry me?" Rania looked at the man who had read her darkest secrets and loved her for them. She looked at the desert around them. She placed her hand on her stomach. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, Nasser. 1,000 times yes." He kissed her under the starlight, and for the first time, Rania realized that reality was finally, truly, better than the fantasy.